Go.
Yep.
All right, this is the Williamson County Board of Commissioners meeting. It's July 22nd, 2022 at 10 a.m. Roll call, please.
Jim Marlowe,
Present.
Brett Gentry,
Go.
Tim Atkinson.
All right, this is the Williamson County Board of Commissioners meeting. It's July 20th.
Brett's got it.
Okay. Hey, I'm back.
Could you repeat that again, sir?
Remember the time we did the, we said the pledge and Ron was on the phone and it was a delay?
We got pledge allegiance in here, go, I pledge allegiance, I'm going, oh.
That's fun. All right, any old business that we need to take care of first?
Not really old, but I was at a chamber deal last night and I saw the mayor of Greenville. I told him, on the ARPA deal, he kind of asked for quite a bit, but he
They asked for $2 million.
Yeah, he goes try and get anything with help. So I just,
So did he say they're going to complete the project?
I asked him if he would do the project and we completed in 2026. So it should be something.
Well, in that, okay,
Remember we talked about that, Dad, so I just want to make sure I asked. I hadn't seen it.
right, and I talked to Ron, a couple of times, and I wasn't confident they could get the job done, because it really is a very big, almost it's like a city project.
Yeah, he said they're working on some kind of grant, they get most of them, they get some.
Well, and that was another consideration, is if it's federal money, we have to be careful about how
Yeah.
this money.
I just want to bring everybody, I can talk to him.
But I absolutely.
Before I forget it.
We haven't done anything for Craig, we absolutely love to help them.
I think, could you ask for any more money next time?
And on that note, did we do anything for, is Lake Beach still in the works?
As far as I'm concerned, we're gonna give Lake Region $100,000.
Okay. So make sure, 'cause I know we talked about it last time.
And since it's on our agenda, if you want, I can contact, I know a couple of the board members, I'll see them this weekend, if you like, I would tell them that
I'm fine with that.
you're fine with
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. One of my main targets.
Okay, well, I will extend that to those guys down there, and let them know they're gonna get $100,000 from us.
I think it always was, just want to make sure we left it.
Yeah,
I think we had, five or six, we were pretty solid on that one.
And I think we were being pretty fair. Half of their system is in Johnson County,
That's right.
and this is Williamson County money. So,
All right. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to new business, and under new business, we have a White Ash sewer credit for Steve Kerrigan.
the motion,
Yeah, this was for
$27.
$27.56. It's a sewer.
Make a motion to approve this $27.56 sewer credit for Steve Kerrigan.
Roll call, please.
Jim.
Yep.
Brett Gentry.
Yeah.
Tim Atkinson.
Yes.
Okay.
Moving on under resolutions. We have the real estate taxes, payment dates, and penalty dates. Ashley's here. Actually, you want to describe what this is, or?
Well, if you go past what the statute dates are, there has to be a resolution adopted by the board to pick the dates and then the penalty dates, which is basically the day thereafter. Rich, you probably haven't seen this. So we took last year's resolution, you can glance at it. We took last year's resolution, basically changing dates in it. That's been prepared by the state attorney's office in the past.
We can vote on this contingent that it passes. This smell test, or you can tell us, right?
It's exactly like last year.
You're good.
Thank you.
All right.
They
So-
can change.
So first installment due date will be September 8th. Second installment due date will be October 13th. We're just required to provide 30 days from the date that we mail them to the first date that they're due, and then 30 days thereafter between the first and second installment due dates. So because of the delay, and to make sure that all the taxing bodies within the county can get their money, I can't offer a 45 or 60-day separation between the first and second installment. So those
When will they go out? That's what it's about.
intent is to get them out. Well, I mean, they have to go out no later than August 5th to abide by the 30-day rule, but I mean, we're hoping to get them mailed out August 1st. They're all printed. We're in the process of folding them and packaging the multiples to save everybody money. So, I mean, I think that we'll be done with that probably by, I think, Thursday or Friday next week. And we'll go out the final. So, that's the reason.
All right, so we just need a motion then.
Motion to approve resolution number 22-07-22-41, real estate taxes, payment dates, and penalty dates.
Roll call, Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Brett Gentry.
Yeah.
Tim Atkinson.
Yes.
I'll make sure next time that we get it to you, but since you were out of the country, time was of the essence.
It was down on the beach. Yes.
Believe it or not, I worked every morning.
I did not want to bother.
About 4:30 to 7:30.
I've been there, so I did not want to.
What beach were you on, by the way?
Dominican. So,
Okay. Moving on, talking with Brett, and I brought this up at the last meeting that Brett has been working without a contract, to the board. I asked Brett if he would, be so kind as to draft a contract for us to look at, kind of an engagement letter, for him to look at. He's drafted this. He sent it to all of us to look at. It lists conditions, the scope and duties, and so on. I think the main thing is, what we want to make sure is that, and what Brett's main concern was that he doesn't get overburdened with all kinds of other little spin-off projects, other than working for the Assistant State's Attorney Board or just the board and everything that concerns the board, whether, whatever.
yeah,
What are some of the things that
I think the biggest thing for me was, if the board's going to take action or be involved with it, then I think that's quote unquote the board work, and you guys want the legal counsel. Still do the labor stuff as well for all the offices. If somebody's got an employee issue or an FMLA question or those traditional things that I was already called for, that's all encompassed with this as well. So that's not a problem. It's just it's the outside projects. For instance, the ROE, when Brandon was still, I guess, involved, he sent it over and said, hey, this detachment hearing is on such and such date. I need you to go cover that. I never dreamed that was part of the quote unquote
Not,
board work.
he has not.
Went ahead and did that. Yeah, the Property Tax Appeal Board, we got a notification that there's a response due to Shawnee Senior Living, their property tax appeal up in Springfield. That there's a response due sometime in August, and it was a 255-page document that I received yesterday just from Brandon. Nothing else to it other than just a forward on of the email. So it's those types of things that, unless it's assigned, unless it's assigned by the board, that's what the contract's designed to encompass, is those labor matters from the office holders. I have no problems with. In fact, I think that'll help and maybe give some office holders more willingness to call and say, hey, we've got an issue before it becomes a bigger issue, as opposed to, well, I don't want to call, So that's fine, but it's the other project issues that I'd prefer come through the board.
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to suggest is that we draft a letter in an email or a hard copy letter, whichever, and send it to all the department heads stating that any concerns that you would like to address to RET, please address it to the board first, and we'll determine whether it needs to go to RET. If it's labor issue, absolutely. If it's something else, we'll refer you to the state's attorney's office and to Marcy, let her assign it to whoever it may go to. And that way we can keep the board work, RET doing just the board work.
All right, I agree.
And I would like for the entire board to sign it.
Do we have any idea what the new state's attorney is going to do in there?
I've not reached out to her yet.
Because what I don't want to
I
do.
will.
So here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to leave office holders without some kind of reasonable response on legal advice,
Understood.
okay?
And what that's gonna look like over there, I think everybody is still
Well-
uncertain.
And that's the reason I was going to say this, is that if it becomes a situation where you have to give somebody advice or counsel, we can't leave that undone.
And I'm not gonna nickel and dime it.
Right.
I just didn't want it to become the norm. I don't mind the exceptional, you
Right,
know, hey, I needed something and I reached over and they're not giving me an answer. You know, all that takes at that point, for say it's Ashley with this, you know. Now this I would have deemed a board matter because the board has to sign it, it's a resolution. So resolutions, ordinances, and agreements that the county board has to sign off on, I consider that
that's
100% board work.
absolutely
But if you had another issue that you were trying to get an answer and couldn't, but you're running up against a deadline that doesn't involve the board, I think you could reach out to Jim and say, hey, look, I've tried to get this answer. I can't. Can you, is it okay if I call Rhett and say, can you give me this answer? Not a problem. Or if you just have a spur of the moment one that's going to be a simple no-brainer. Everybody's got my cell phone. They're going to call and say, hey, I've got this. Again, I don't mind those. It's the projects. You know, that's the
250 page.
That's the ones that I'm like,
Yeah, with deadlines. Yeah, no, get it. And this can be flexible.
yeah, it will be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can modify it if we need to. And
We will not,
as time goes
I will
on.
never ask anybody to work for free.
I appreciate that.
I will. You work free.
He has so far.
I was in business for too many years and worked too many times for free for me to do that.
Understood.
Well, I think that the last year, I guess a little over a year, the board just had a juggling of attorneys. It's been a hodgepodge deal from the get-go. And nobody knows what one hand's doing, what the other hand's doing. You might not get a response for 2 weeks. But here's one thing that I'd like to see personally is he's going to be over the boards, be the attorney over the board. And everything ran to me. Right now, one's working on a noise ordinance over there. It's hired by ARPA to help dock it. That's got nothing to do. He is the attorney for the board. That is coming in. I've written that guy twice. No, I heard one thing back from him about that. And what I'm getting at is the ordinance, like how we go through by county for all of our ordinances because we're not, we don't have zoning. So if you put out a single solo ordinance, it's going to be like you're targeting one person. Tony wants to revamp the ordinances because he wants to add and change. And you're also by county. So, you know, him over doing that when he should be doing the courtroom stuff, you should be doing it. You're our attorney. I guess what I'm getting at is things are going to get lost if we don't focus on one person. I hate to say it, but that's you.
No, I understand.
You know, if somebody else does something over there, how would we know? How would you know what's going on? You know, it's just going to be a juggling. And that is what we've dealt with for a year and a half. And far as I'm concerned, you're it. Nobody else.
That was essentially what I told the new state's attorney in my office. the
Oh,
other
did
day.
I
Almost,
don't care.
almost exactly what I told her. I said, we must have consistency here for this board.
Yeah.
This,
She's
this
got a lot to learn.
attorney style attorney
Yeah.
business that we've had here's got, it has to.
And you know, and for an office holder to reach out, they can reach out to anyone else and to determine, to make a decision. Yeah, go ahead and call Rhett or whatever. And Rhett, if you think that is outside the scope of this, even though we passed it on, let them know, and then you can, you know, fail safe would be you to direct them there.
Yeah.
Well, what
And now, but he brought up a good point, okay, on the ordinances like this, what he's talking about. Is that something that the county board would draft, or should by county take care of that?
Well, so that becomes the question of an enforcement element as to who do you want to be enforcing
Right.
that
Well,
element of it.
okay,
well, the sheriff's department goes by the Bi-County Health ordinance now.
Understood.
and they're looking for direction on this
So the
now.
question becomes, is it an environmental issue that should go over to the environmental element of the health department? Or is it something that the county wants to put in place? The difficulty I think the county has is I agree with Brent in some regard of if you throw out a noise ordinance right now, you've got to be prepared to have everybody follow that noise ordinance out in the county as opposed to your first one's going to be your one business.
I'll give you an example. That's a very good point, because even in my neighborhood, there's one person has this extremely loud car that goes by every day. And I'm telling you, I can hear them 5 miles away. I can hear them.
And I'll just tell you, the noise is very tricky within the legal system
Yeah,
Look at tons of
because it's
calls.
difficult to
yeah.
approve. So you've got to be careful with that, that if you open that up, how much non-policing is the sheriff's department going to do? Because they're going to get reports of such and such is driving their vehicle and it's loud.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have to send an officer out there to have a meter,
Mm-hmm.
to sit and listen, and then potentially write a ticket, because they can't go off of, well, I got a call from neighbor Jim that said your vehicle's loud, so I'm issuing you a warning.
Yeah.
That
doesn't
doesn't work.
Right. And what I don't want is like with the city of Marion, they posted all those signs all around, no jake braking, no
Right.
excessive compression braking. And, you know,
It's difficult to enforce.
who
It's
enforces it?
next impossible.
They do it all the time.
It's similar to tinting windows.
Yeah.
Unless you have the device, you can look at a window and say, hey, I can't see through it. But
Yeah.
in a court, you've got to be able to have more than just, well, I couldn't see, so therefore
Yeah.
that's.
You can't have.
So-
You'll see the face, right?
So then-
Carbondale did that.
Maybe we need to look at this through the angle of the enforcement. The sheriff is looking for direction to enforce it. So to give him the authority to enforce it. Now, does that need to come from the county board? Does that need to come from bi-county? And
Combination.
the state even has a noise.
Correct.
So how come, my question
Got a
then is,
nuisance
why can't they use that?
Again, that's where it goes back into the state's attorney's office as to what is the state's attorney's office willing to prosecute on.
Okay.
So
No,
if the
not
state's,
authority,
so
not
if the state's
authority.
attorney's office says, hey, that's a violation of the nuisance statute, or that's a violation of this, that's enough, I'll prosecute it, then that's what needs to happen. But if the state's attorney says, you know what, we're not wasting our time in prosecuting that, we're busy enough, then it doesn't matter what law you have in place, it's not gonna get prosecuted. I mean, they ultimately have that discretion to prosecute or
Correct.
not prosecute any matter, whether or not somebody's guilty as can be, or it's a real gray area. They again get that choice, just like you see on DUIs, speeding, seatbelts, et cetera. They can say, well, we're gonna go ahead and dismiss it. Not a thing. anybody
Because
can do.
there have been a number of times where when people are called out, law enforcement agencies are called out, and they'll say, well, the county doesn't have this or that, but the state does. So it can be enforced. So that's what
But
you're
it's the
telling me.
prosecution.
It can be enforced now.
It's up to the prosecution.
Okay,
And that's the same way in every county.
that's what I want to
Every
know.
county will be
That's what I
different
wanna
on the prosecution element
Yeah.
of things.
hear. Okay,
Well, we'll go back to an instance, so a topic that we hear a lot about, but the lady naturally messaged me at midnight or whatever, and said, you know, the cops said they can't ride a noise ordinance. I said, no, it was disorderly conduct. It was written with pad, we don't have it. Well, no, either. So then she told the cop, he said, oh, okay, yeah, okay, we'll do that then. So they wrote, I don't know, again, 6 or 8, a bunch of them.
they're about
They're
50.
sitting there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not gonna work.
But that's what I'm saying.
And then Benny said, the officer, he's from a noise ordinance, because, so I live next door to Tim, and Tim and his wife are talking too loud or whatever.
She told me.
Yeah, well, so she's yelling at him, and I just call and say, hey, there's a noise ordinance, you need to go pop them. And he said, where does it end? It could be a barking dog, it could be kids screaming, it could be, so Jim, it's a slippery slope on that noise.
Well, you know,
But at the end of
and
the
that's a
day-
good point. Now, when you're getting into fine details, and I know we aren't doing that, but the barking dog, that is something that to me, it's an animal, and an animal's going to do what an animal's going to do.
But there's ordinances about that.
Correct. But anything else, like the car, a concert, anything else, that's someone's intent to do that.
I understand.
Willful intent. to
But
do
you have to look at, so a simple example of the noise ordinance. So if you
Yeah.
set your decibel level at a certain, anybody that shoots off a firework is in violation.
It's true.
So,
I-
you see what I'm saying? So you go down those roads
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, and then now you've got the establishment that's saying, well, people shot off fireworks for 3 days around 4th of July, not a single person got a noise ordinance ticket. Why are you picking on me?
They're still shooting.
So I think it takes it takes a concerted effort between the sheriff's department and the state's attorney's office, along with the board, to address citizen concerns and figure out the solution. You know, it's like speeding. You know, sometimes you just have to put the speed bumps in. You don't like to, but that's what has to happen because it doesn't matter how many tickets are written, you still have the same problem. So you try to do the measure that's going to fix the problem as opposed to going in full guns
Yeah,
and
right.
and try to do it. So that's what needs to happen is there needs to be a conversation, you know, now that there's a new state's attorney for the period of time, needs to be a conversation with her that says, how do you wish to handle this? Here's the situation we've got. My understanding is you've got 10 tickets on your desk or on somebody's desk over in your office. Is that something you're going to be able to look at, or what else do you need from law enforcement in order to be able to make that prosecution
And
happen?
I want to be on record as saying, I would like to have that meeting with them, with this full board, have the state's attorney's office here with the board and with the law enforcement, and everybody hammer this out. That way we can be on record and everything. You know, so anyway,
Yeah, it's a slippery slope on that deal.
okay. All right. So we can't vote on this. As far as what wasn't discussed on this is, I think the fee was $40,000 for rep. I would suggest that we just take that out of contingency. We have that, we can pay him out of that. Does anybody have any suggestion on that?
The treasurer has a comment.
Yeah,
Well, I propose two options. You pay him out of contingency, but also he's doing work that an ASA was assigned to do, and there's
That's where I thought it was
there's
coming from.
salary in that ASA item. Now, this is, there's an appropriations ordinance that could move that money from, from there into contingency or something else. However, I think the way the ordinance is stated. and I can
we
get you
tried
the
that once
information.
before.
Well, I don't know if it has to be initiated by the office holder. I mean, in the way that the statute or the way I propose it was in an event of appropriating money out of what would be considered a salary line item, the office holder had to request that, and then it had to be approved by 2/3 vote of the board. I don't know, like in this instance with having, an outside contractor, I guess maybe is the best way to put it, that you're acting as, if you could possibly move that.
It's an
from
option
that
that we
point.
could do.
And that would be something, I can get you that, or I think I've sent you the ordinance, but I mean, you could.
I think the
research
real
and see.
question is, where are they at from a budget standpoint?
That's-
The
that's
office
what I-
holder,
that's
the thing.
I can't tell you whether it's
Well-
been an underspend, overspend. And,
I could look at it and
Yeah,
tell you
and,
that
and
there's.
you won't know for another week
That's exactly right. If
because
we-
I can't tell you what's happening today.
That's it. And I appreciate that, but I still, my feeling is we should just go ahead and do it out of contingency.
Well, my question on that is, well, that's fine, whatever, but when we were sold on this, Brandon said that we used funds that were not being used because people have retired, et cetera. That's where I always thought it was coming from.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to know, is there,
I mean, and I can ask our auditor
before I get
if
in.
I can use a payroll line item to pay an independent contractor. I don't know. I mean, we might be able to assign
I sure,
Rhett's
that's what I
contract
thought.
or agreement to that particular line item that it would be paid out.
Well, and
You
you've
know,
got,
for-
you've got a couple of days to figure it out.
We
Well,
got-
we can get that answered today, actually,
Formal votes.
because we're gonna bring her in.
I'm just saying, you can't
We can't
take
vote
any
on
formal
today.
votes today anyway, so.
Right.
But I can give you an up-to-date budget from that office, and I can even give you the general ledger to show you what's coming out of those line items. I can provide you with whatever you need to make the decision.
My question is if you take out contingency now, let's just say, take out contingency now, can that be repaid back from?
Well, I mean,
Sorry,
it's,
Ryan.
it's all county money. So the issue would be is if all of a sudden, if you paid out a contingency and there's, well, I guess it's twofold. If you paid out a contingency and you had a lot of other things that needed to be paid out, and you had used the full 40, I don't know if it's 40 a year or 40 for this fiscal year, whatever you got set up. If you had used the full 40 and you spent it down to zero and then you needed $30,000, you got nothing.
That's what I'm wondering about.
If you.
I know we got it now.
And then the other side of the coin is if you leave the $40,000 in there from, you know,
Yeah.
in that budget, which I'm not saying anybody's gonna be malicious and say, oh, it's mine, but I mean, it's been past practice of whatever is in that department head or office holder budget is theirs and theirs alone to do as they want. So if we want to give out bonuses at the end of the year because there's a big fat positive number in that line item, who's to say you can or can't do it? It's at the office holder's discretion. Not trying, like I said, I'm not laying blame on anybody or anything else, but
All
I mean,
right, I
just don't-
appreciate that. But my line of thinking is that I know they have money left over from a couple different attorneys that had left. Okay, you had Tom Slayton leave, and Andrew Purcell leave.
Right.
So they have, I don't know, I'd imagine at least $90,000 in payroll. Approximately, I don't know, that's how close that is, but in the guise of helping them out, if she was to find another employee that was part of it because they need to replace some of their state's attorneys. My
Some
line
of
of
that money
thinking
is
is
used
that
up
for
by
payroll,
707, whatever the
The
employees,
7-Eleven.
711 employees.
so.
So she'll have to use some of that to pay those people. So-
I don't want to cripple them at first. I get it.
I
But,
just assume.
but the thing of it is, it's complicated. I think it's not saying that it can't be done that way. But, I think, right now, Red has worked, since June without pay. I think it'd be great. We can't vote on this today, but we can put this on Wednesday's agenda. Just For
You
for
started
the rest
that?
of this year, take that
Started that?
contingency. And,
Yeah.
let's see where we go. So the board will decide how we decide. But,
I'm just offering you suggestions. I'm not
I
telling
get
you
it.
which way to go.
Yeah, I get
that's
it.
the way I took it. It was a
Yeah, okay,
suggestion.
okay.
That's the only way I took it. So, okay, with that being said, then we have an email from Kim Meyer. We all got it about some significant deficiencies. I would like to bring her in. So at this time, I'd like to give her the phone. I don't know.
I've got a bunch of work stuff. So
You do?
Do you want me to ask you those questions?
Now let's go ahead and get this one.
You can bring bills in.
Yeah, I've got a purchase bill.
Oh, yeah?
Good.
And then I was gonna update you on the reporting and everything else.
We're just rolling along, man, huh?
Yeah.
Special.
Special request. That totally depends upon attitude, actually.
And it involves, right? We'll see.
You know it is Friday, right?
Why not ask?
The wireless customer you are calling is not available.
Hello?
Kim?
Yes.
Hey, Kim, we're in a board meeting and, we've come to, a point where we're wanting to discuss the significant deficiencies.
Okay.
And,
Is it what I emailed yesterday?
yes,
Okay.
would you like to go ahead and inform the board, concerning your email here?
Sure. I'll give you a brief, overview of that, but the, 2021 audit, the summary you have there are the results of different errors noted in testing. And they're in similar areas, repeat areas. as you had in the past. And, you know, if on your own time you find it helpful to pull out the past audit books and, you know, or I can prepare a document for you that just gives you that history of year to year to year, so you can see the similarities and you can see the repetitive nature of those particular findings that might be helpful in trying to get your minds around or in a direction of corrective action to address the systemic cause. But those items, if you read through them or if you've read through them, from past discussions, those should be very familiar, those topics, those areas. The payroll, the pension expense reporting, the issues there, claims testing, the issues there. I guess what I'm asking from the board is there a thought process on corrective action by the county? Historically, the board has instructed or requested, maybe requested is a better word, the office holders in charge of the functions to make the necessary corrections. With the repetitive nature of the finding, I'm not thinking that's been very effective, and so I'm wanting the board's thought on, do you want to continue to
She's talking about
instruct or request the office holders to make the corrective action, or do you believe it's time to try a different approach?
What I was saying, Jim, is
Rhett was trying to say something at the very last of that, so hang on a second, Kim.
Okay, I'm sorry.
so since she's discussing a document that was submitted to the board and you're having discussion and consideration, we need to at least have that document so that it's part of the record.
So we didn't do it, make some
Well, I got a
comments.
340 last night, so I guess it's,
Okay, is this not the document, the email?
I don't know. I wasn't emailed.
Oh, you weren't
Yeah,
emailed?
you want to have Julie make
Do
copies?
you need me to forward something?
Can you forward that to Rhett?
One moment.
Or just let me make a copy.
Because Julie will need it for the minutes.
Yeah, let's have her
I
make
can
some
have
copies
just
of
one
that.
second. I guess I do.
Sorry, Kim, we
Look,
need to make the record clear that of what you're discussing. I know
Okay.
your voice is being recorded, but the document itself, nobody else would have access to know what you were talking about.
Okay.
So
Because I
that'll-
sent it to, I guess, the board members and Ashley and Amanda. But here, hold on. I just forwarded it. I'm sorry, I didn't think to, include you. I will certainly do that in the future, though.
I didn't have a chance.
I didn't have a chance to read it. I had a 340.
I kind of did it. So.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to read it.
And Rhett may need a minute to peruse that. That's fine.
this is something that's always been on our audit report anyway.
Well, yeah, these are repetitive.
I got
Yeah, while Rhett's pulling that up, I just want to share this thought with you. I understand that the monitoring agencies, whether that be the grant bodies or the comptroller's office, those agencies that get these reports, I understand they're running behind because of COVID.
Did you make everybody a copy? No.
And
I would like
you know,
a copy,
there
thank
really
you.
hasn't been a review of documents, but I do believe at a certain point, you're going to get a letter or letters from the agencies
From the grant bodies.
or the comptroller, or the regulatory body, you may get more than one.
Oh.
Saying, they're gonna require you to report to them what you've done to correct these issues. And it may put different funding mechanisms at risk until you do. So my thought is, would you rather take a look at these issues as they are repeating, understand, try to get to the systemic cause, and make corrections where it's not, if it's with a threat of losing funding, where it's not a
Thank you.
knee-jerk reaction, have to get something going, or you have some time to really think through, okay, here's the systemic cause. This is what's going to fix the problem long term. So I'll give you a few examples of the payroll matters. In the past, we've had instances where people on workers' comp continue to get paychecks. This particular cycle, we noted that in October of 21, there was a computer software malfunction that made all of the tier 2 overtime includable and reportable by MRF. Overtime on SLEP tier 2 is not includable or reportable. And the error self-corrected, the software self-corrected in June of 2022. But for that 8 or 9 month time period, overtime wages on SLEP tier 2 have been reported. They're going to have wage adjustments to correct that. You've had the, material payout of time that was not allowable for the county handbook. So there, I think if you just want to, in that particular area, the systemic cause to me appears to be a disconnect between the benefits administration and the payroll preparation. And how to fix that, that's what I'm leaving in your hands. If you will just start talking about realistic ideas of what would prevent these specific examples from occurring again. What is going to be the best preventative medicine? Because these things are very difficult to correct.
All right. Well, my question to you would be, would creating a separate HR department help in resolving some of these issues?
Well,
and if we do that, what would be some of the things that we need to look for? Or how do we create it
okay.
to be most effective?
It might. I think the most instrumental piece of this is having the payroll clerk and the benefits administration portion of this have their reconciliations that they go through to catch these items. Okay. Now, in one of the recommendations, what you'll see is I noted that another systemic cause is for 300 employees, there's about 2.5 days to get the payroll data input and the checks or the direct deposits going. Okay, for about 300 people. So I'm pointing out that that's realistically not enough time to do any testing to catch errors. So the recommendation is you need more time to process those paychecks and tests before the checks go. I understand how popular that is going to be. That is just a suggestion to kind of get you to systemic cause. So if that is not a possibility to have another week of holdback, okay, we all remember how popular the first week was.
Yeah.
Then you have to do more after the fact testing, which would be the benefits coordinator and the payroll clerk testing the outcome of these paychecks to maybe catch a mistake in a month instead of a year or months, which causes a lot of dissension, a lot of anger, whatever you want to call it. It causes a lot of frustration. So the key is to have those two functions doing regular reconciliations of what's going on. Another area, for example, that there have been multiple errors in is when employees change, their health insurance to add somebody, take somebody off, and whatnot, that nothing changes on the withholding side. So the benefits administrator is, putting the change in, is noting that change, and has no access to change the rates. But then the transmission or the communication to the payroll side of this, there's a drop. And so the withholding goes on as if nothing changed. And that has produced balances that employees owe because of this gap between the benefits administration and the production of the payroll check. So, Jim, that's a long answer to answer your question. It's possible that would help, but at the end of the day, there still has to be those reconciliations that after the fact testing to make sure the withholdings are correct, pension contributions are correct, benefit withholding is correct. Everything still has to have some sort of filter on it to catch errors in a much shorter time frame.
Well, I think this is something that, we've talked about a little bit in the past. I do know this is a repeat finding. If you look at any of our audits in the past, it's always been there. We attempted to have the, what we call that team, the claim review team. And that sort of got shot down.
Yeah, I think there were some administrative rationales or reasons for that I don't know that I recall all the details of. That's fine. So if the claims review committee for the claims themselves, okay, is not something that you see as functional for whatever reason, what in your mind would be functional that you think you could do? Is it for after the fact testing as well? Okay, to catch things in a briefer, shorter period of time, rather than to have, disbursements go on for years. So I don't think there's any idea off the table. The organization is yours to run, it's yours to manage. There is a responsibility of management to have internal controls in place that are effective. So in my recommendations, I am giving you some ideas or conversation starters. But that may spark a different idea or an offshoot of a different idea where you can say, well, what would really help us effectively is to do this. So I think a lot of times, and this is just something that, when there's an opinion formed of this, there's very little anybody can do to change the opinion. But when things go undetected through audit, so I've got the examples of things that were found. There are more than likely other claims. There's not 100% testing of all your claims. So there are more than likely other claims that have errors that weren't tested. Okay, the system just isn't reliable to achieve the goals you want with accuracy and all these other things. The responsibility to have a system that works does rest with management. I think a lot of times there's an assumption at rest with the auditor, and that just isn't true. And I want you to look at your engagement letter, and all of that is put in writing. The responsibility to bring the errors we find to you is what I'm doing. And then trying to have you understand those errors, their significant deficiencies, because more than likely they are systemic to your system as a whole. So I'm just reporting you the testing, the results of the test type. And to then start to understand, I do believe the regulatory bodies, whether it be a grant agency, a comptroller, or somebody, there will be a day when they're processing all of these at one time. And I wanted to really bring it as a point of emphasis to say it's going to get much more difficult if you don't start to really remediate the problem. I think part of the issue is growth. You've had a tremendous amount of growth in the last 10 to 20 years, 30 years. You're not the same size entity. Yet the process you have for claims production as well as payroll production hasn't really changed. The one change that was made, I want to say approximately 15 to 20 years ago was the board used to review all claims. And that helped. That helped catch a great number of the issues going on with claims. But there was a change made to where now the board only reviews maybe about 10% of the claims that are produced out of the general fund.
How was that
And
change
so-
made?
There was a ruling from the state's attorney that elected officials would not have their claims reviewed by the board.
Okay.
Okay?
I can only guess who that was.
Uh,
I said, I can only guess who that was.
Well, it would have been the former state attorney, right? Okay. So, but there was a question, raised on, a claim, the board didn't want to approve a claim from a particular office holder. It was, let's see, maybe 1 or 2 sheriffs ago. And so the sheriff asked for some interpretation or that he had to have his claims reviewed by the board, and the opinion was no, that those claims should be produced or, generated and put through the system without review. And so, if I look at this and I want to look at this from the payroll clerk's perspective, the benefits coordinator perspective, and the perspective of the employee assigned to generate claims, okay? Those folks are hardworking, show up every day, want to do a good job. They are. The system that's developed, I think, only set them up to fail at this. I don't know that there's a chance of success unless the system is designed appropriately. I think that they do want to do a good job. There's just so many holes in the process that I don't think they've got a chance of success in having a clean year. But I do believe they are hardworking and conscientious and have every intention of doing a good job. But I think they have to be given a platform, given a system of procedures, a system of processes that are effective in mitigating these specific errors. Now, do you remember the instances of paying people on work comp and giving them paychecks?
Mm-hmm.
And having to go back to employees and say, well, we didn't do your insurance withholding correct, you owe us thousands of dollars. You're working through a particular pension issue right now. You're going to have to work through the SLEP Tier 2 pension issue. I did raise another question on the SLEP Tier 2. It doesn't look like personal days or comp days have been included in SLEP Tier 2 wages, and I can't understand why. I think those are includable, but the payroll clerk and the benefits coordinator have set up a meeting with the IRS representative to pass through all of that and to figure out what is the correct category to include and what's not. So they were both immediately reactive, and I have to tell you, in working on the SLEP Tier 2 overtime issue, I had an error calculation when trying to recompute their SLEP Tier 2 overtime, and it occurred on every SLEP Tier 2 member selected. So I figured it was systemic to all SLEP Tier 2 members. And the payroll clerk, it's Marla, Marla did a phenomenal job in saying, okay, we're going to figure out what happened. And, she immediately started looking. She ran reports. We looked, we hunted. She was a great accounting detective in determining what happened and when. And what happened when it auto-corrected. So she was very dedicated to figuring out the reason. And so, therefore, I do believe they are very conscientious, but I don't believe the structure or the controls are correct to have them be successful. And that's, I think, what I'm looking for feedback. Do you want to do anything differently to enable success for the folks that are really trying to do a good job, but the process is not.
Well, I could say, personally, for me, yeah, I would think that, it would be in our best interest to try to correct the situation
Okay,
and to look into whatever is going to be the most effective route in order to accomplish what we need to accomplish to
Okay.
offset, this problem.
okay. When it comes to a response, is that the response that you want to provide? Is that, how do you want to phrase that? Or if you don't want to, you don't know right now, that's fine, but is there a way to phrase that response that you're going to reevaluate the approach to corrective action?
Any suggestions?
We got this at 340 SD, I think it's a little bit, somebody talked about it, that it's,
I think you can discuss it, I just want to take
well,
forward.
yeah, but I
We
mean.
can't take any action because it's still.
No, and that's something that, I think, as I've talked with Julie before and even Amanda, and I brought this up to Kim before that, we talked about this at one time about having an HR department. Now, just saying you're going to have an HR department, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to correct the situation here. But what I think, what we need to find out is, and I know how you phrase it, yeah, we're going to look at analyze these, the problems, from the email that you've given us. We can't make a decision right here formally say, now we're going to create an HR department, but we can tackle that during budgeting.
If I can.
Yeah.
What I would comment is the traditional role of an HR department does not get into the payroll elements.
Right.
Right.
The HR department
Well-
handles the employee complaints,
Right.
the Family Medical Leave Act, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, USERA, ISERA, all of those things that deal with, that they are almost a separate entity from management for the employees. It sounds as though your issue isn't with HR,
No,
your issue is more of a county administrator type of
Right.
position than it is anything else. And I think some of the difficulties in what Kim mentioned with the reason you stopped approving the claims is each office holder, when elected, has the ability to control their own office.
Yeah.
You give them the pot of money to spend it, and you don't get to question how they spend it as long as they've not overspent their
As
money
they don't
type of
go.
situation. So there's a lot of issues that I think are raised that are valid issues, but I don't know that the HR department ends up being the solution that.
right. No, I get what you're saying. And but I'm just saying, a combined effort with, of the benefits.
But like I know, talking to Julie, she doesn't know the sheriff's department as to who
Correct.
has and who has. She gets to see the workers' comp because she's involved with workers' comp. But as far as FMLA leave, she gets the paperwork, but she can't tell you how many hours somebody has in comp, sick, vacation, et cetera, because those are internal of that office control.
Right.
Same thing with payroll. You know, she doesn't see what deductions and withholdings are appropriate or proper. Now, the question becomes, how do you create that system
I
in
think it's-
conjunction with the office holders? Because they also have to have that input, I think.
Yeah. And I don't know.
So we can't take the payroll out of the office holders. They're the ones who are reporting hours and,
You can with an agreement of the office holders.
yeah,
but
but
that
we
is
can't just
usually the,
arbitrarily do that.
no, that is usually the common
This is what I'm getting from
struggle,
what.
I guess is
from
what I would say with other counties.
Reading between the lines, what she's saying, it sounds like to me that we've got to get the office holders on board with correct reporting.
Because I think the office holders, you know, Kim's deficiencies somewhat point back to the board and saying it's the board's obligation to manage. I slightly disagree because I think the elected office holder has their own obligation
They
to
have their own
manage and
obligation.
to report. So
Okay.
there's a double edge there, and I think the office holder accountability also comes into play. Now, if the office holder doesn't administer IMRF withholdings or 401As or anything else, then we have to look at, well, who is responsible for that? But the submission of certain things is certainly on the office holder. Well, then there's another element to it, and then there's another element. So I get that but I think it's going to require an office holder, county board
Agreement.
understanding and process is what you guys need to work towards.
I don't know how else it can be done.
Well, we tried in many ways, not all, but some office holders just simply will not. And you know that, Red.
I understand. That's what I'm saying. I don't think the HR department.
You're just spinning the wheels,
I
but
get it, yeah. It's gonna take cooperation of all offices, which means I think we should at least make an attempt to try to at least address this. Again, you know, we got two options. We can sit back and do nothing and just let everything go on their own. Or we can at least, like, I think what she's asking for, what will we do? I think we would at least make an attempt to try to correct this. You know, going back to the claims review committee, you know, the state's attorney in the past said that basically, you know, we can't review those claims. And I think we also got a report from the Attorney General's office as well. So,
May have been.
yeah, we did. We got a report from the Attorney General's office as well. So basically, we kind of hit a wall on that. And because we had every intent to do that. And so boom, now what do we do? I think honestly, I don't know if there's any other option other than just trying to get an agreement in place with every office holder.
what if it's this, Red, I guess I ask you, what if it's just say, I don't know. Two office holders, all of them would agree, and the rest don't.
Well,
Is it everybody on or none, or what?
so I think with the pension situation, I think that's within the county's control. The county board has the ability to implement some things there because the office holders themselves really don't handle the administration of that. So then you're just having that department or that person look at what has been reported by the office holder. And they're not changing anything. They're looking at it and they're determining reportable, non-reportable, et cetera. I think that review can happen from the board and it doesn't require office holder participation. What requires the office holder participation would be a central registry of how much time is on the books, whether or not somebody is following the contract or if they've given 50 cents more than the contract, raises. Those types of things I think are contained within the elected official in conjunction with the union. If the union doesn't say anything about it, then everything's fine. But if you take away a benefit, then the union's going to say it. Or if you give one person a benefit, not everybody else, generally the union will come back and say, hey, you're in violation of your contract. So they have their own check system within the union in some sense. But to prevent that, you guys can pass a collective bargaining agreement all day.
Mm-hmm.
And the office holder can go and say, I'm going to give 25 cents more an hour than what the collective bargaining agreement has. And there really isn't anything, as long as they're within their budget, that the county board can do about it.
Good.
That's the frustration, and I get that. But there is no systemic approach absent just a cooperative agreement between the office holders that they're going to work in conjunction with the board. That's the difficulty. And like I said, you guys aren't alone. Every county faces the same thing. Generally, it's when an office holder is leaving office, whether that be due to a retirement, a promotion, or whatever. They've got some funds left in their account, and so before they leave the door, I'm going to take care of some people that were here. And the next person that comes in says, why is the payroll or why are the salaries at this level? And you point and you say it's because that office holder had the ability and there's nothing we can do about it. And there's some truth to that. I mean, I've dealt with a number of counties that have had that exact situation happen, whether that be they go to the bench or whether that be they resign or they get beaten in an election. All of those things happen, and we see it in the national politics world as well, where people get pardons, promotions, and extra pay before somebody leaves a state or federal office. There's no way to fix that system absent statute.
Okay. Well, to answer your question, I mean, the only thing that I can come up with is that we'll make an effort to look into this and see what we can do. I mean, you know, make a conceited effort to, you know, whether that means sending an email or contacting, you know, all office holders. Or as they come in for budgeting, we can talk to
Everyone but
them,
one.
you know, and tell them, look, this is the problem, you know.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say, and incorporating Brett's thought, is it fair to say that first, the county board is going to determine what is within its capacity to resolve,
I think that would have to be our
right?
first
That would be
thing.
step one.
Yeah.
Right? And step two, you're going to utilize, let's call it, trained and knowledgeable legal counsel to do that, right?
I would think so.
Okay?
We're
Unless
still
we
trying,
can get a cheaper rate.
we're still trying to find that person.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason I bring that up, because in the auditing world, you know, you do have to, I have to.
Here, I'm gonna say this out
what they
loud.
call
You said
skill,
more
knowledge,
in this
experienced
meeting.
people.
Right.
It's pertinent.
Okay, so
I've
that's
heard
why
in the
I said,
3.5 years I've been in this position.
Right.
No, I get
In
it,
a
yeah.
matter of 30 minutes.
And then the third is,
Hey.
Put it on record.
Hold on a second, Kim, we have two conversations.
I think we've lost
All right.
control.
Please, all right, go ahead, Kim.
okay, I apologize, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine.
Then the third step, once you determine what's in your capacity as a board to do, and you receive the advice of skill, knowledgeable, experienced legal counsel, then you're going to put measures in place where you can control them. And secondarily, you're going to seek cooperative office holder agreements to mitigate the areas that you don't have control of.
So that's,
Is that?
I think that would be, no, I think that would be a fair statement all the way around. That's what we pretty much discussed right here.
Okay, and I can look at improving the language in the responsible official section, where I'm putting, or the thought process of the county board is there is a statute that does say the county board has to, as the responsible party, put effective internal controls in place. Okay? And that's as good as, you know, what other people's opinion of that statute is. I can put the responsible official section to be who is currently administering the area. Would that make it more accurate
Which would be,
to just list the officials or the offices who are administering these areas?
run that question again.
Okay,
Ask that again.
so, sure, one of Brett's questions was, or one of his disagreements with the language was that in the responsible official area, I'm indicating that the board has some responsibility.
Mhm.
And his comment was that may not be 100% accurate for all of these things. So I
Okay.
can, in the responsible official area, just indicate this office holder is currently administering this section, this area, this,
Yeah,
whether it be payroll
think-
reimbursement.
that'd probably be good.
You know,
Yep.
to make it as accurate as we can, and then let you all go through this process you labeled out for me, as far as you're gonna do an actual determination of who is responsible for what.
Mhm.
Okay? So I think it's also looking at this from an outsider's perspective, because, you know, these documents do go to grant bodies, the bondholders, the comptroller, you know, anybody who wants to give you money. I think if you step back and look at it from them reading it, there's gonna be concerns if this is the best your system can do. There's just gonna be concern about giving you money, you know? So,
But wouldn't they be aware that almost all counties are in the same boat?
yeah, this is true. This is true.
I mean, if
But
we're
I
all
can't-
in Illinois, if we're all governed by the same set of rules by the Attorney General, I mean, we're all kind of handicapped.
Yeah, but I just can't predict who's gonna use this information as a determination whether or not to give you money.
Okay.
Okay?
No, I
can't
get it.
Control
Okay.
that. And, you know, if you're looking for some major grant or some major program or something like that, and somebody uses this as an answer to tell you no, you know, that's gonna be very disappointing, you know?
Right.
So I can list that out, that you're gonna do those. Now, I think on the last one, which is the reporting of the 911 money that was reported as paid to Williams County government that you did not receive. I think that has been resolved to the best of your abilities. You have reported that to the appropriate level of government uphill. I don't necessarily think there's anything else for you to do there. So I think you've done all you can do on that one.
I have a question. So how many years has it been for like most of these findings here? And how many years has it been for most of the findings of other officers that never get resolved?
How many years has it been?
Yeah. It's kind of like repeat offending stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, whether you're talking, you know, the exact same circumstances don't repeat exactly the same year, but issues similar to these, I mean, at least the last 15 years or greater.
And that's pretty common in probably all the offices, that they just kind of just sit there dormant. They don't really fix anything on their findings.
Well, there was some improvement when the,
Circuit clerk.
on the compensated absence area particularly, when the treasurer's office had the software program rewritten to begin input and tracking for the departments in the offices. I think that was a major improvement. The sheriff's office was the only office non-compliant with that. So I think, you know, it might be helpful to go back several years and look at those and put together some changes that have been made. But there are some substantial issues that have been outstanding for that 15-year or greater time period, that, you know, I can't predict when someone, you know, wants to use these as an example for whatever reason, whether it's giving you money or not giving you money, or, you know, but there are some systemic issues that have been in existence for a very long time.
That answers your question.
Yeah, I know it's been a long time. I don't know how many years. I know it's been a long time.
Anybody else have any questions they'd like to ask? Ashley, anybody?
No.
Brett? All right, Kim, is there anything else you need from us?
No, what I'll do is I will type up that summary of that response out to everybody just to make sure you believe it's accurate and what you want to say, and I'll make those changes to the responsible official. Now, there's one thing I was going to also update in that on the payroll findings. I had noted that was a repeat finding from 2018, and I think I need to clarify that for 19 and 20, I had combined into one deficiency, the payroll process, the deficiency, and the claim deficiency, in 19 and 20, they were all in deficiency 1. But I thought, you know, it's probably substantial enough to have it be its own deficiency on the payroll matters again. So I will make it clear in the header that in 19 and 20, payroll deficiencies were included in deficiency 1. 2018, they were standalone. 2021, they're back to standalone. So I didn't want that to be confusing. So as an improvement for 2022, I don't know what ID number it was changed to, but you only have 1 month of 911 proceeds that the state believes it paid you. Somewhere an ID number was updated, so the state will no longer believe they're giving you money that you never received. So you know, when the state is reporting that it gave you, last year it was right at $1 million a year, that nobody on a county level received, it's in no county bank account, that's a big problem. And so I think with updating to someone else's ID number, I think that problem no longer rests with you. So
We hope.
as long as it's not your ID number. Okay?
Okay.
They'll have to resolve whatever issues they have on their own, as long as you're not entangled in it and involved in it. Okay? So I will email, the summary of that, and if you're in agreement with that, then we'll move forward with that. I think it's reasonable, and I understand what you're saying. And if there's anything that I can, you know, contribute, whether it be informational history, examples of improvements you have made, the nature of past year offenses, so that you can see specifically what occurred. I think sometimes the fastest path to success is saying, in a perfect system, here's how this would work, and we wouldn't have an error. Okay? And then can you envision what you have to do to get to that point?
All
It
right.
may not produce happiness, but it'll produce a more accurate system that isn't so susceptible to fraud, waste, and abuse.
Okay.
She
You
and
don't
I,
have any
well, I
questions?
mean, she and I are the same mindset of being able to transfer. It's legal, so it's going to be rest determination or opinion to tell you guys if that's an eligible thing to that statute.
Okay. All right. Okay. Kim, I appreciate the email, even though it's somewhat bad news, and but we will address this. And is there anything else you would like to you need to share with the board?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I just want to be as helpful as I can, and, you know, reporting, unfortunately, the things that don't go well is the nature of the job, and it's not necessarily popular, but hopefully there's enough context there and detail there to just simply point folks in the area of how to get to the thought of corrective action. So,
Okay.
but if I can be helpful in any way, with history and, you know, anything of that nature, I'd be happy to provide it.
All right. Well, thanks, Kim. We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Back to the agenda. Actually, I know you said you had something else you wanted to bring.
Yeah, I've got 3 ARPA, 4 ARPA things, I think, in one. I guess legal related question.
Okay.
So first easy one to get out of the way, Ryan Farley, who's the engineer for Fergus Water District in that project, through ARPA, submitted a pay estimate request. I can give you guys a copy of this if you want to look at it. But it's the first pay estimate for Burgess. Total completed amount is 78,000, or you awarded, I don't think we awarded, the $1,228,881. Completed value amount on this estimated, the first estimate was 78,914.85. If you look down at the bottom, there is a retainage in there, so they're requesting $71,023.37 to be paid from their ARPA grant that the county's provided. So
Okay.
I need approval for that. From you all, then I can get the claim prepared.
You don't have copies of that.
Well, I mean, he gave me 4.
That's
I
pretty
can,
simple.
I mean, there's 4. I mean, I have to sign, and if you look at the second page, it's been signed off on by the contractor,
Right.
Yeah.
the engineer, as well as the president of the water district. And then the county official, I don't know, I guess am I supposed to sign that, or do you want the chairman
It's
to
a
sign?
disbursement of ARPA funds?
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm gonna do a claim that all three of them will sign, but this is the actual pay request that has a line for the county official's signature.
I guess my question would be back to you, if they refuse to sign the claim, are you paying it out of your own pocket?
Well, no. So
So then I would have one of them sign it. That protects you.
So I will need,
And that's,
Yes, for-
and that's
that's
legit,
why-
I mean, that's
yeah, that's why-
that's the rationale.
yeah, no, that's fine. I want to make sure.
Yeah, if we had to vote on it or approve it,
Right, that's my rationale. I don't want Ashley tied up with, hey, I approve this, and then the board says, wait a second, we're not approving this amount.
right.
No, that's fine. And I was
You
even saying,
sign-
even whenever they make the approval, I
Yeah,
mean,
as an
it's on
apparent
record,
agent.
but,
No, I know, you've signed as an apparent agent,
yeah,
but I don't want,
that's fine with me. I'm all for taking my.
but if it's already an approved ARPA project, I think you can, I think if it's an approved ARPA funded project already, I think Jim can sign off on those without a board meeting. The claim would then need to be signed at the board meeting. Does that make sense? I think he could sign that agreement on behalf of the board if it's an approved project.
Because we approved the project.
Because you've already approved the project, then the funding claim, you just come through and pass
Okay.
as the funding by file 3.
So then that's what I'm gonna need them
Yeah.
to put on record. to approve it.
So when you get a bunch of these, let me know.
Huh?
You get them.
When you get him, he can sign off.
I'll sign them off, just let me know. We got a bunch of them.
That's the only one I've got.
Stick them in my mailbox. I'll sign them.
So then I need a motion to approve that now. To be paid.
We done that until we have a claim?
But
Jim can sign it,
Yeah.
He can
but I
sign
think
it.
the claim itself gets
We have to-
formally approved,
We have
right?
to approve the claim itself.
Right.
And so Jim can sign
You
those.
physically need the claim,
That's what he's talking about.
or can they just approve the amount and I prepare the claim for them to,
I think.
I thought that's what I did the
I
last
think at the
time.
beginning, they said that the board has to sign off or approve the claim.
However you guys, because I'm the new guy at the table,
Yeah.
however you guys normally approve.
I don't care
the
what's
Does
claim,
he
right or
have the
wrong.
training?
If you have to have it
You work
in
on it.
writing, that's the way you normally do it. So be it, if you want to make a motion and vote on that and have a record sheet of it, that's the motion that was made. Again, I'm fine with that, but she will need a copy of that document. If you make a motion to approve
Okay.
the payment of that document, Julie will need a copy for the minutes.
How do we handle?
That's what I was just gonna say. So we prepare a claim sheet with the Walker and Bluff bills attached. I come in, I present it to the county board, tell them what's in it, and I sign that claim. And I present it to the
There we
board.
go.
You guys put
Yeah,
off your
right.
signatures on it
Right.
and turn it in.
Right.
So,
I don't think there's ever a vote, but when you guys sign that claim,
That's
you've
it.
had it presented to you, and now you sign it.
Because we already
But I thought
approved the
that
project
whenever
and the
we-
funding for that.
Yes.
Set up the parameters for the ARPA stuff that you said you wanted to formally approve each one of the requests.
Yeah,
by a vote.
I guess the word,
So that's, you
Well,
know,
I think
so-
that's the way it was at
But
the
I mean-
beginning.
I mean, this is still new.
Yeah.
so
Well, if it's running-
pretty
if it's
fluid.
running 5
I don't have
hours.
a problem. We have a meeting, I guess, next
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Can you?
Yeah.
I can put a claim together and have it all
Yeah.
ready on
okay,
Wednesday.
do that.
Waiting 3 days is not gonna matter to
Right.
them, I don't think. So if that's the way we wanna do it from this point forward, I'll make sure that I have a
Yes.
claim prepared.
Just as long as we're consistent.
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
think-
fine.
Let's have a claim. Let's have a claim.
I think at the beginning, it was to get the claim when you're, and we vote on it because when you're dispersing this kind of money and it's federal money, that it needs to come to the board to
Yeah.
approve it.
Okay.
Is the way it was set up. Now, it could change how you're going to.
So if you wanna go ahead and
but-
sign that, that's
I'll
fine.
sign
I'll
it.
get the claim prepared on Wednesday. I'll present
Bring the
full
claim,
claim,
we'll vote on the claim.
and then you can.
I'll sign these and I'll bring them down to your
Okay,
office.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. That takes care of that one.
Did you have a note?
Yes,
Right.
so in relation to the second tranche, do you have an anticipated date of when you're gonna do like those awards? I know you're still interviewing people and I've been out and haven't been part of those, but I didn't know if you had set a timeframe that you were gonna.
We originally told these folks within 10 or so days.
We all agreed on about 5 of them, sure.
Right.
You want, everyone to have down on our list.
You gonna be back on Wednesday, Jim?
Yeah, Yeah.
You guys, would you like to just say on Wednesday, these are the ones we're gonna fund right now?
Yeah, I think we need to.
Because some of those we're gonna need checks pretty quick on. Some of those we're gonna be able to pay them.
Well, that leads me, I guess, into here's my thought process. So rates are starting to go up. I have the ability now that I can probably lock in some of those monies that are, 12, 18, 24 months down the road of waiting for stuff to come in and things to be done. I can sit down and talk to these engineers. I can talk to Claire and Ziegler about a couple. There's one of them, they're like, it's going to be 9 months before they ask for the first dollar. Well, then I need to take like that money, put it in a 6-month CD or something, like within that group to be able to earn, because all the interest is ours. So I have the potential to make, $100,000+ in interest if I start manipulating the money.
I think that's your decision.
I know it's,
to-
I'm trying to work on a timeline.
Yeah.
Just to find out,
Yeah.
where
No,
we
I get
stand
it.
and all that.
I
So that's
get
what I
it.
was asking.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest amount of money that we're giving away in the second one is going to be months away also.
Okay. And I'll talk with the engineers and find out. I just wanted to.
Mostly these engineers are all going to be the same, so
Right.
Yeah,
just go.
Okay.
yeah.
Every
Almost all these
project's working out.
projects, I think that we're going to fund this time are months off.
Next item, I was just going to give you an update, ARPA reporting. Rachel and I have got the ARPA report completed. I think the last time we discussed, I had nothing to report. This will be the first time we've actually shown obligations and expenditures that we've had up through June 30th. Do you want me to present that, to you on Wednesday? I think I can print out the pages for you to approve. Are we still doing it in that manner? I know that was the initial discussion.
I think we had to approve that. Didn't we? Don't we have to approve that?
Well, I'm the reporting authority, so I got it done. I can press send. Myself, but
I think it'd be good. if we
I couldn't
just-
remember.
We've already
approved
approved it once. We've already approved it once, and then said, on you, did you push the button and go on? I thought.
Are you talking about the actual numbers themselves?
Yes.
I don't,
So
need to.
I don't think we've.
We've already done it once on claims.
On the claim, I see.
And he's the keeper of you sent it on.
I'm doing the report. Obviously. but-
And you're listing all the
I'm just saying.
obligations we make too, though, right?
Right.
So here's what I've done. I've only submitted and listed because paid out obligations. and
Put the
expenses.
rest in lost revenue.
No, we didn't do the standard allowance deduction yet. That's, because then everybody's have to borrow the doors. I've only put in what things have been funded. So Blairsville, all of the 2 premium pays, the administrative payouts to, for the GFOA and Kim, and then one other, maybe it was Burgess or some other project that we paid. Oh, Lakeside that we paid. So I've got all those listed, which is like $3.3 million committed in that. I have not listed Burgess or Blairsville because there's been nothing done. And the way that it works is you got to put in an obligation, and you have to put in if you don't actually have money, you put in fictitious expenses for it to show it's an obligation and nothing's been paid. It's a real pain in the rear end, and it's honestly not accurate. So I'm putting in what is committed and what's been done.
Have you put in the 90 grand, Brandon?
No, because I haven't paid anything out as of June 30th, which that's going to bring me to the next question on that. So it's done. I can, if you want it, I can present it to you on Wednesday because I'm still within my time period, before submitting it. But as soon as you say it's a go, I'll hit, send and it's done. So that'll be done. So I can still do that. Okay. That was another question I had. And this is I guess need your input. For the state's attorney, that ARPA agreement, is that between the state's attorney and, the board? Does that need to be transferred? I'm looking at this from a paperwork standpoint. Was that new state's attorney just need to resubmit that request? I don't know. I don't even know what.
The original project request was submitted by the state's attorney,
Yes.
approved by the
county.
county board. So I think that project exists.
Okay.
And I think the claim for the payroll element of that just comes in to the board on monthly basis. I don't know how often he's billing.
I think he's only been paid once, so that
And
was.
that's not being run through payroll.
Because that's one that's a per hour 1099.
Yes. Yeah, it's being paid through ARPA funds. He's not on that individual's not on our payroll system at all. I mean, so yeah, that's a straight, here's the money.
Straight contract,
Straight contract.
right? No taxes held, nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. So I think that claim just comes through. Each time you get a submission, that claims comes to the board for approval, no different than the last project that just got approved. Here's the expenditure to date.
I have to check on that. If he hasn't been paid,
Well,
somebody will sign it.
So the big question on that one is going to end up being, there's a limit. There's an hourly, so there's some factors in there that
Okay.
somebody's going to need to watch, because if he exceeds the number of hours, doesn't matter. That's the difficulty with that one is, as opposed to a flat rate of we're going to pay you X for work, you go and do the work. Here's what your job is. This one is set up seemingly as an hourly per hour. He's getting paid, but then nobody controls the number of hours. So you don't want those number of hours to go over the allotted amount of the ARPA funds. Take a lot, but you don't want it to be.
Right. Did his agreement, did it say anything about other legal services? Like, was he supposed to provide some secretarial? Any of that?
My understanding is it was just purely
Help clean the docket up.
So,
a 1099 contract of assistance. It wasn't, you've got staffing, you've got IMRF, you've got health, you've got vacation, you've got sick.
There was no benefits.
well, no, I meant like a standard, like if we were contracting a standard law firm, like we would say, we have paralegals, whatever.
So, so the difficulty with the state's attorney's office is their filing system is internal. So so if he had an outside secretary at his office, they would not have access to the system that the state's attorney's office uses for filing, for storing of discovery information, those types of things. So I think he has to use the office staff there, has to. Otherwise, you've got confidentiality issues galore.
Okay.
I think whether it's he or whoever they hire, the whole point of the ARPA was to get him on the backlog that's caused by COVID on the
Correct.
cases. Nothing new, like what's our board stuff has nothing to do with ARPA stuff. I mean, so you're mixing them. I got a question. What if, dumb question again, I don't know, but what if these agreements or any agreement that was done by the former state's attorney, and any new state's attorney, I don't care who it is, comes in, they want to untie that agreement because it's not really, he's not there anymore. Can they do that?
Depends on what the agreement says.
Okay. Any agreement, I don't care.
I mean,
if it's
most
whatever.
agreements that you try to, that people try to put together have a beginning date and an ending date and
But it's done from the,
termination clause of some
Termination.
sort,
Yeah.
but does that carry over to the next state's attorney's agreement?
Yeah, I mean, the agreement for that person, that party still exists. They're contracting with the office,
I
not
always
with the
worry
person.
about that. Yeah,
And so that's the big thing. So since it's a contract with the office, not the person, that's where I think it still has its validity. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Anything else?
Here's my last one.
Is this the legal one?
Yes.
There's been 3 others, so.
Your limits too, but that's all.
You can present it to
Hold
us.
on, we have
We'll see
to
if
approve this. Yeah.
I'm entering into my 4th tax cycle. In those 4 tax cycles, I've had 5 different assistant state's attorneys.
We're aware of that.
Wendy Cunningham, Philip Maddox, Becky Ray, Andrew Purcell, and Tom Slade. I know you made the comment about that Mr. Barkley is only supposed to do board-related stuff. However, my office, the assessor's office, this whole tax system needs some stability. So I was requesting, or I'm requesting, I guess, on maybe my own behalf, perhaps on the assessor and the county clerk, of possibly being able to have a point person being rep, than having to go through another round and round and round because nobody wants to deal with it.
Oh, it's
Nobody has
unbelievable.
familiarity with it. And, you know, this is not only our money, this is taxing bodies' money, other taxing bodies' money. So, you know, when we do something wrong or something happens, it doesn't just affect us, it affects a whole lot of other parties.
And I'll say, since Rhett's been involved, I get answers quick. Hey, it's a,
How does that make you feel, Ashley?
It takes a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. to get
Well, I
it.
mean, I just, you know, it is what it is.
And I-
Actually,
So I threw something to him, and I mean, honestly, he didn't know that he was supposed to even be doing it, but yet I hear, you know, from the state attorney, yeah, we've had a conversation, which seemed to be a one-sided conversation. You
The
know,
only answer I can give you is I appreciate and understand what you're asking. And, you know, I know where you're coming from, and same thing with every office. Two things. One, I think we'd have to understand what the protocol is, and this is also a state's attorney's question. So I think we refer it back to them, even though we got a new state's attorney. Or number two, we haven't signed this agreement with him yet. We can discuss it just a little bit, see if there's any wiggle room. If not, then we'll know Wednesday, you know, and give your answer on Wednesday.
because I mean, there's an open
I understand.
issue at the moment,
what-
but I
one
don't
of-
know who to.
One of the issues that I struggled with was not knowing exactly what that definition of board work was. Not knowing what issues your office had the ability or commonly threw towards the state's attorney's office. And when that conversation happened with Brandon asking that, to be honest, he didn't know either as to what issues got thrown from your office
Yeah. hence-
over.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Alex's office, you know, again, it's one of those things that trying to ascertain a contract and monies associated with it, I'm trying not to undervalue, I'm not trying to overvalue myself, I'm trying to kind of hit the spot. And not knowing what that job entails as far as, you know, what issues do you have in the tax cycle? What issues does Alex have in the tax cycle? You know, how many sale and errors do you have versus how many do you know? There should be some form of an average in there that should give an idea as to where it's at. You know, the property tax appeal board up in Springfield, that's a much bigger issue. And the reason I can say that is because it's got some law firm out of Chicago on one of the streets there. That generally doesn't happen unless it's a fairly big issue down here in Williamson County. So it's those types of things. I'm not afraid of that. I just don't know what that entails as far as the response and they've requested oral argument up in Springfield, you know, all of those things, those all come into play. And it's difficult to say, okay, I'm going to do it on a budgeted amount of X because 3 of those, my budgeted amount of X just went out the window. And so that's the difficulty I have. Not that I don't want to help everybody that I can. And I appreciate the compliments of responsiveness, et cetera, but that's where I'm struggling with conversations and trying to figure out how we can make it work.
You know, I want to just add something to this because I've sat and watched this for 2 years. You're exactly right. They're here today, they're gone tomorrow. Nobody knows what got picked up, what didn't get picked up. You got a new person sitting over there now that probably want to do things differently once they understand really what's going on in there, which makes sense. Quite honestly, we have lost, you know, I don't know, we're down 2 people over there. 1 or 2 systems.
Probably at least 3.
I think we lost 3.
I think they only have 5 left.
We had Granati that worked
Lisa.
in the courtroom, 31 no murder trials. Within the courtroom, you had 6, was it 6 attorneys, correct? You had assistants?
You originally had 10.
Chuck,
Chuck.
this
Oh, I don't know about Chuck.
And I think it's 6. Now we got like 9 and it's still so I would rather use my money personally to give to him to take care of all these issues because we know the damn thing get done and not hire. So get that back up to 1.
So he said, so they can't get that back?
Cannot get that back.
Cannot, okay.
Because they were using this person this week or some first stuff for this week, and the email never got back. It might go 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I get it. And I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I'm just saying, we have to run functional. We know this guy, Fred, sorry, I don't like you, but I know you, and, you know, I know what he can get done, and I'd rather take some of that money instead of hiring, you say if you're down to 5 or 6, 3 more, you're gonna have a person that swore that she's gonna be in there working in the courtroom, doing cases. Why not give him a little more to take care of your issues? You know what I mean? I think there's so much.
That's what I said.
But then it comes down to
You're not gonna
time,
get
the time,
That's what I'm just gonna say.
the time factor.
We can't leave
I know
this
you're-
county short on legal advice.
Yeah.
We can't. And I think that's exactly what's been happening.
I mean, if we mess up,
But
it's
we have to
because
have
we're getting
willing
bad legal
participant
advice.
in red. I mean, this is something he has to be willing to take
I
on.
would, and that's the key right there, because it's
You know,
gonna be
don't
a
take
time
on too
factor,
much.
Not one
because,
single word is.
because I know
has been
you're the
asked
attorney
about
to a
that.
number of different entities.
A few.
And so it's your time factor, I don't know.
Yeah, don't take on too much you can't do, you know, so I told you that a long time ago.
I get it, and that's, I
Just say to him,
pride
the
myself
super
on
attorney.
trying to make sure that I don't, that I take care of it, so.
Your situation delicate.
And that's why I said to you.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing,
Not
is I've got
signing
some
that
other
shit.
attorneys that I can.
Still
Well, that's why I
say.
just proposed it. I mean,
Oh, he-
I get it.
may,
I mean,
may
that's-
or may not be a thing. he's
He
working
can
on.
delegate to his other.
No,
I mean, I'm just asking because I have encountered,
I know,
I mean, a revolving door.
I know.
And things have dropped. I mean, you can ask Alex the number of, sale and errors that have been submitted by, tax buyers that should have been disputed, that fell through the cracks. I've got
Yeah,
one
you
that
can-
I have to do myself because of an error that was made by, it's a county official error. It wasn't anybody's fault. There was a miscommunication on a deed, but I have to initiate that. So but I can't draft it myself. I have to have legal counsel draft that and present it before the judge. So, I'm at the mercy of having somebody to be able to, those don't have to be
Another
their
option
but
that you could use would be to call, ICRMT and that attorney
It's free.
firm, it's free, and utilize them as well. And they'll be more than happy to work with anybody. That's how we were using Daniel Corbin. He was with ICRMT. It's free. So
They
that's.
come with the package. They do, and Julie Burke, I mean, they do a good job.
I don't know that they would do,
I don't know, but you can at least
I
ask.
think they
You can
handle
ask.
employment, I mean, they handle potential lawsuits, but I don't know that they would handle initiating. We'd have to check.
Hey, yeah, that's all I'm saying.
And like I said,
It's an option.
we can discuss, because, we've got, it's more than just me and the firm, that some of the stuff can be delegated as well to say, hey, we need sale and error, and then I handle it internally, how we handle, how
You
we
just
handle
need to
that.
know the direction.
I just need
and
to
the
know how much work
understanding.
how much work it's gonna be so that I can make sure that I've got the staffing over on the backside to be able to assist me in completing.
And that's when you talk to the new state attorney, you can lay all this out, and I think she will probably, I don't know.
No, I mean, this is what I'm looking at. I'm gonna start a tax cycle. I mean, I got a tax sale that's gonna happen the second week of December. So, I mean, we don't know how things are gonna end up on whatever, November 7th, whatever the date is. I mean, you may or may not have a brand new state's attorney being, sworn in on December 1st. And
And my role may change entirely at
Yeah.
that point in time as well. I
But
understood.
I'm gonna have to present, a judgment request before the judge. I mean, within 5 days of that happening. So, it's like, I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't really want to
We
be
have-
up in the air.
We have
I'm
potentially,
trying to sell $2 million worth of real estate. So I'm looking way down the road, but at the same
I
time.
think I can start out right now, just go ahead and talk to the new state's attorney.
I can do that.
yeah, we have potentially 3
Should be sworn in on Monday.
state's attorneys in 12 months.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't see where that's one bit of anybody good in this county. But but that's what you're looking at. It's gonna be a mess.
That's why I'm trying to be a little proactive.
Could have been
Collateral
two,
damage.
it could have been two, but,
That's all collateral damage that has been brought upon.
yep.
All right, is there anything else?
No, that was it.
Travis.
If I have 5 minutes.
No.
That's it.
Okay.
Read your email.
Not asking for any kind of vote or anything, but you guys kind of got drug into the Shadow Road crossing thing yesterday.
Yeah.
Been on the phone with the ICC, Interstate Commerce Commission this morning, and a conference call with the ICC and the UP Railroad folks. They are pretty much beside themselves on how badly they screwed this up and are basically begging for forgiveness. And so I've come up with a plan where we can get this work done this weekend. I've actually been communicating with Andy.
Andy Lee.
Andy Lee is kind of the spokesman person out there. They've got a text group going between all the property owners. He's texted all of them. He's got answers from, maybe half of them. It's like, yeah, let's go. So the basics, gist of it is that railroad has agreed to start at 9 o'clock Sunday morning. That lets everybody get out, go to church, do their thing, and then have it back open by 3. That lets them come back in, they go to Walmart, go get them something for lunch, and then come back by 3. And then the following day, close, it'll be open, ready for traffic. There'll be a partially rock surface. And then Monday, close it back down at 9 again, asphalt it, and open it up at the latest. Andy is, I've been in communication with him, he feels like it's a pretty good solution. Most of the people that responded to him has been positive. And since our agreement says you give us 60 days, they clearly did not do that.
In this agreement, emergency services, can they get to it at any
So
time?
that's the other thing I meant to mention to you. They have assured me that they will have equipment, planks, rock, whatever they got to do. If they get an emergency call, somebody's coming, they'll push rock across the crossing. If they got asphalt, we'll just run through it, whatever we got to do to get an emergency vehicle.
Okay.
So the key is someone's in that subdivision, put a call in the fire department. Somebody's got to let these guys know that, hey, an emergency call has been placed. How's that going to happen? Who's going to be responsible for that?
Well, so here's I'll just answer that with what we do. When we have many instances where we cut the road, put pipe in, and it's like a BG. Well, it's a one-way in, one-way out. We keep a pile of rock there and a piece of equipment there. We see something come, we immediately start filling it out. I can't, if somebody's a half mile away back in the subdivision calling for an ambulance, I don't know that I'm gonna have any way of knowing that.
Well, I would say my suggestion would be get with Brian Burgess. And if that call is placed, somehow have some sort of agreement that, then he could call you or,
That's good.
whatever emergency
It is
service.
personally.
Call him, he'd call you.
I've got the cell phone number of the guy, the State Thompson, that's gonna be working on site with them. So, Dave Burgess okay.
Brian Burgess, he's our new EMA director. And that
And
way,
maybe-
at least somebody's gonna be contacted to where either you or the railroad group can then get ready, all of a sudden a fire truck or ambulance shows up.
Good-
Nobody
good idea.
notified him.
That falls right underneath his job.
Yeah,
So what I will do is I'll call these guys and talk to them about it and give them this guy's number on site.
Yeah.
And say,
just let Brian help you through
yeah,
this.
you've got a call coming to Shadow Road. This is the number you call, tell them to get ready.
Right.
Good idea. So everybody feel okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
I got one question for this email. I find it fascinating. They could do this with no warning. There's nothing we
Okay.
or the citizens can do that's stemmed from a federal law. Okay, so you've got an agreement with them.
Okay, no, you gotta reread it. Okay, there's two situations here. This agreement, it says in there, this agreement gives us the authority, we got kind of a hammer on this. If the railroad, if this agreement wasn't in place and the railroad had a a track situation
Uh,
that could cause, let's say, a derailment. They could actually close that rail down and do their work without, you know how sometimes they get on the tracks
Yeah.
in Marion?
Yeah.
They got a problem on the rail down there.
Yeah.
From the ICC, they can just stop the train, clog
Yeah.
the track.
Yeah, I said it could cause issues, such as derailment, but at that point, they can do anything. So that doesn't apply to derailment.
It doesn't apply in this situation.
So the second deal, okay.
This is the second deal, just making you aware because,
What could happen?
you know, what could happen.
Okay.
But said that to me, they decided to work with us.
Oh, yeah.
They had to.
I mean, so just so you guys know, there was another situation, up north where actually this was the same kind of deal. And, Housemark man played the ground, couldn't get in. And the statement that they put in there about the 60 days, giving a 60-day notice was specifically because of this.
Really?
They just blew past it.
Yeah.
So. All right, well, I will get back with them and let them know that if you.
Well, at least they got a plan.
I'll call Brian. I'll probably give Jeremy Norris a call.
Probably one of our,
Fire.
all right, I'll do it.
I think, didn't he have, what's her name's on phone? Jeremy Burris.
Jeremy Norris.
No, Brian.
Burgess. He's got Kevin's on phone.
I don't know. I really don't know. Not called him. Oh my God.
Yeah, there's.
He carried two, which I don't
I'm
know.
pretty sure,
I don't think he needs
I
it.
think he sent me something. I think it's Kevin's on phone.
Brian.
And on another note too, I know that, we
I'll
have,
send it to you.
Oh, I see. I got their EMA, 922-9362 and 923, no, those, I don't think.
923-3399.
923-3399.
923-33, that's what, you got that one?
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah, he likes one of them.
Sorry about that, Jim.
no, it's okay.
What else did you have?
No, I don't have any. I'll talk to you later.
Oh, okay. All right, sounds good. Yeah, we'll stick around.
Sorry.
No, you stick around.
I'll-
Okay. All right, guys, see you.
all right, see you.
Say, Travis, go weekend.
Okay, with that being said, is there anything else that anyone has? Do we have anybody on the Zoom in the waiting room? We open it up to any comment? I guess not.
Waiting in line.
Then we just need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Oh, wait, before we adjourn,
Back up.
next Wednesday meeting for the contractor, Brett, what time?
That's a good question.
Actually, can we do 10?
I don't care, we do 1:15.
In the morning?
Yes. No, it's fine. It's fine.
If you want me there, it needs to be 1:15. If you don't want me there, then.
Well, honestly, if it's your contract, I'd kind of like you there, just in case something that we didn't think of, or another question.
No, and that's fine. Then I'd prefer it to be 1:15 if possible. Mondays and Wednesday mornings are my bad.
Okay.
So let's talk about that, though. We're going to award these, do we want to meet in the morning and do a short meeting in the afternoon?
Yeah, that's fine too.
Would that work better for you, Brett? That way we don't.
Well, yeah, I mean, are we just gonna just say their names and go on?
Yeah, I didn't know if we still wanted to discuss.
We're not bringing them in, we're just gonna.
No, I didn't know if we
I
wanted to.
think I pretty well.
I think we can
I think we're all
discuss,
three thought on top five.
I think we can discuss certain other ones, but, we can go ahead, on the ones that we're solid on, just go ahead.
All right, that's fine.
So 10, then we can recess and reconvene at 1:15.
All right, is that what you wanted to do? Yeah, no, 10 head, okay, that's fine.
2:45.
All right, so we'll get you out of here. We'll do nothing but Brett in the afternoon.
That's fine.
Okay?
And we can bump that to 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
You want?
Yeah, I can do
You
one.
want to do 1?
All right, done.
Got that, Jule?
Alright.
All right, bud.
All right.
Ashley, any final words? You went to 5. You went over the limit. Anything
I
else?
thought I only had 4. 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second.
I need to ask
You got a
something.
motion made and second. Yeah.
So Jim,
Yeah,
Brett,
Yeah.
Tim,
You betcha.
Jim, will you make sure that she gets a copy of that claim? So she can copy it.
I don't have these.
Yeah. Well, we didn't take motion on it, did we?
No.
Okay.
We just signed.
So you're
I mean,
good.
on
Never
this-
mind.
I just